Right, we are live and buzzing from West Berkshire, not quite North London, but close enough. We'll give it a minute to let people join the room and come and join us as we are going to dissect an interesting North London derby. Would you agree, Jace?
Interesting or just standard Arsenal performance? A start of the season performance, I would say. I wouldn't say it was derbies of old. Just did the job. Happy with it. Not going to complain.
Yeah. Right. Give it a few more seconds and then we'll get cracking. I'm going to get all my stuff ready to go. I'll do the usual intro then. Welcome, everybody, to another Red Bull and Red podcast. You're joining myself and Jace Sunday live following Arsenal's 1-0 victory over Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Is that what it's called? We call it the Toilet Bowl, right?
Toilet Bowl, White Hart Lane 2. I don't know.
Shite Hart Lane, something
Shite
like
Hart
that.
Lane. Yeah, who knows?
But we're coming off the back of a victory that takes Arsenal to second in the league. Just behind Man City, who are obviously steamrolling as per usual. And to be honest, buzzing, but not quite buzzing as you might expect. I don't know. How are you feeling, Jace, after that victory?
Well, I guess I'll start straight in with my review, right? Which is it's just another game. Like a North London derby, there's this intense rivalry, but I don't feel that level of intense rivalry at the moment with Spurs. I don't know if you feel the same. It just felt like another game. It felt like a similar experience to last season where we're starting off a little bit slowly. We're kind of working our way into it slowly. You know, you'd say that our defense hasn't been the best in the last 3 games. The last game against Brighton was a few slip-ups. Obviously, Deck's red card had an implication on the game and the result. But what we've done is we've been just tried to be consistent and get the points on the board and keep rolling towards Christmas. And I think that's what we're going to see. I wasn't worried watching this game, but I also didn't feel the intense rivalry that I usually feel in a Spurs game. That kind of that heat, that pressure, that kind of like aching worry, like agonizing, I can't watch this. I think what we just saw was a professional performance away from home, missing our 3, I would assume would be our starting midfielders, and just did the job we needed to do and then just rode it out. Very happy with the result, but yeah, not much of a rivalry anymore. I don't feel. Maybe I'm hooking Spurs fans here, but you know we're just levels in the moment, and I think that we can ride out games like that now quite comfortably.
That is a bit of a hook, I reckon, Jace. It's a good hook. I like it. I am going to go down a route that maybe talks a bit historical. You know, Arsenal in years gone by have had centre-back partnerships that have, and forever will be etched in our history, whether that's Tony Adams and Bold, whether it's Kolo Touré and Sol Campbell. But those kind of players somewhat get overshadowed by the likes of Thierry Henry and Ian Wright and Dennis Bergkamp and Robert Pires. You know, they kind of get put to the side because they're not doing the Hollywood things that those players have done. They're scoring big goals, and you know they're winning big games. And yet here we are, where I think in the last podcast actually we talked to Sham about football being an art, and that is what we have turned defending into an absolute masterstroke of artistic nous. It's incredible to see us basically just allow this Spurs team to do whatever they wanted with the ball and effectively come away with literally nothing. It was, Gabriel with the goal, Saliba just doing Saliba things and just being an absolute nuisance and being just an elite defender. But effectively now Arteta is 3-0 at the Toilet Bowl, which you can't sniff at. He's done the job so well, playing with so much resolve and playing with so much like confidence. I think that's partly what you said. Maybe there isn't the rivalry. There was a bit in this game where it did heat up a little bit and it got a little bit spicy with Timber, which was interesting. We can talk about that, I suppose, in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that we have turned this Arsenal team into a defensive masterpiece. And it is incredible to watch, incredible to come away. And like I say, I'm no longer ever worried. And that is a weird feeling being an Arsenal fan from years gone by, where we would be incredibly panicky, incredibly worried when we're playing out from the back, when we're trying to defend with our backs against the wall in games that we've seen before. The type of possession that Spurs had, me and you would be talking about, well, there's a goal coming. It's only a matter of time before that goal comes, because you can't defend for that long, that well. And it does. I think the commentary made a good point of this as well, that we're coming up to Man City this weekend. And that's probably good practice, because we're probably going to be experiencing a lot of that again next Sunday. I'll leave you with this though, Jason. North London is and forever will be red. On to the next one. We got 7 from 10. I said in the last pod, if we got 10 points from 12 over these 4 games, I'd be incredibly happy. Granted, the next one is the most difficult.
Yep.
But we're on course, let's say.
Yeah, we are. I mean, City have had an easy start to the season as well. The number of goals that Haaland's been scoring, the teams that they've been playing games, I would say that we've had the harder run-in. Brighton and Tottenham are very difficult fixtures for us historically. So yeah, I mean, next week is Clash of the Titans. Liverpool obviously drop points. They lost. So over the weekend to Forest. So it really is the top 2 going at it next weekend. So it's a tasty match. Just on your point on the back 4, what was quite interesting was the fact that Spurs, in the last minutes of injury time, they kind of gave up. They had continuous pressure with the ball. They couldn't get it into the box. How many shots were there from outside the box, just shooting from anywhere? And we all know that the percentage of scoring a long-range banger is quite slim. There's a reason why the goals have increased across the whole league in regards to scoring from within inside the box, and that's because the percentages show the completion rate of goals within that sector of the pitch, and the chances of scoring from outside the box are very slim. And I think the fact that we did so effectively shut down the Spurs attack in those last 20 minutes to the point where they were just smashing shots in and hoping for the best, kind of shows that point that you were making, right, around that kind of reside that we have in our defense to just be able to run these kind of games out. So yeah, I think it's an incredibly strong defensive performance.
There was one towards the end where they got on the edge of the box and actually had a lot of space to hit the pot shot and just decided against it. I don't quite know why. And it kind of felt like scared of our defense. I don't know what it was, but they basically started to back off. And we'll get into all this, I'm sure. But like, I love Timber today. Timber was really, really good. I'm sure that you're quite happy with his performance as well.
I'm very happy with Urian's performance. Very happy.
Yeah. Right, let's move on then. So we're going to talk about, we're going to break the game down a little bit into the 2 halves. There's lots of stuff to talk about, lots of stuff to get into. I want to maybe start with that first 20 or so minutes, Jace. How was your head? How are you feeling? What did you see in that first 20 minutes? Because I came away from it somewhat worried about what could have been and what may have happened. But obviously we weathered that storm. What did you think of that first 20 minutes?
Slow start. And not able to gain control of the game. I mean, we are away. It's an intimidating atmosphere for the players. So I'm not judging the first 20 minutes too much, because, you know, it's not like we're at home and we've got our fans behind us. And then we've got a completely ripped up midfield. We've just got a completely ripped up midfield. So the team needed that time to settle. And I think eventually they settled, but we really struggled to get on the ball, and we had to ride out a few Spurs chances in the first 20 minutes, which I think we did. We did the job we needed to do. I think the one thing I'd say is that for Spurs, Dominic Solanke I think he is going to be good for them. Like, you can see that they really benefited from that attacking threat. And I think he caused some problems in those first 20 minutes. Obviously not enough problems to even really get a shot on target, but he was physical, he was aggressive. Spurs kind of took it to us a bit on the counter, on the wings, and he caused us some problems. But overall, I mean, we rode that out, and then we eventually got our foot in the game and took control. I think Jorginho got comfortable. I think that's just one thing I probably want to call out here. When you look at next week against City, I want Jorginho. I'm assuming Declan's straight back in the squad, right? So for me, Jorginho is the one that has to stay in the squad. I think if you compare the performance versus Partey, I think we've been questioning why we hadn't played Jorginho given the volume of games he did play for us last year. And I genuinely think that is a age factor that's being considered, right? In regards to, if you think about what Pep has done with Rodri after Spain in the Euros, they gave him a rest for a very long time. He's only just come back into the squad, right? Really, he's had a long time to recuperate, to get his energy back and get his legs back. And I think that's actually astutely what Mikel has been doing with Jorginho, because he played a lot of games for us last year, given his age, his recovery time that he needs at that age. Whereas Dec can go again. He can go again. He's what, 24, 25? So the difference in recovery rate and energy levels, I think that Arteta's done a good job with Jorginho, and I think his performance today kind of justified that he's the person that has to play in City. Partey is not the one. Partey is just a body to get us through certain games here until our first choice midfield is ready, and that has its risks, and we've rode out those risks so far. But yeah.
I would say though, for Partey in this game and other games, particularly the lack of Ødegaard, like Partey is one player that can thread the needle with a pass. He has got an eye for a good ball forward, and that is, without Ødegaard, we don't have many players in that starting 11 that can play that type of pass. So I kind of think he was left in it. Although we didn't have much choice in this game, that's part of the job that I think he did. I agree with you that, again, in this game, he felt like lazy on the ball. He just takes too many touches. He wanders too much, and he has too much. He thinks he has too much time on the ball when he really doesn't. And he got caught out a couple of times like that. And he had a couple of loose passes as well, which almost, opened us up in that first 20 minutes as well.
But it was even spatial awareness. I think in the first half, if you caught Spurs on the counter and we were chasing back, and there was one particular point where the ball had gone, they were countering. Sorry, I'm just going to pause because my window is open because it's incredibly hot in here, and there's a really loud motorbike just going past. I hope you didn't hear that. There was a point where Spurs were countering, and did you see like the random little drop? Like Partey dropped his shoulder and decided not to run back because he thought another man was coming in, but he was wrong, and then he had to sprint and catch up. Like it was just those.
We did that a couple of games ago, right? The same thing, I'm sure.
It's these small little details of spatial awareness in the defensive positions that I think he's faulting. Like, yes, he has an amazing eye for a pass, but he's spraying a few too many balls away. He thinks he has too much time on the ball, and obviously his legs as well. Don't get me wrong, he's a good Premier League level midfielder, but we are slowly surpassing him. And I think when Mourinho comes into the squad, Rice is back, Jorginho is a good backup, we're going to see less games from Partey. And next week, I think we need a Jorginho masterclass against City. Like, Jorginho still has it. He just has this technical ability to play that, what was Pep called the Jorginho role, perfectly. So I see us executing that against City. I really do. So yeah, I guess I'm plauditing Jorginho here. I think he had a great first half. I think once he got into the game and settled down, that kind of cooled that first 20 minutes, right? That worry. I think we all settled around Jorginho.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'd probably agree that it's a good to roll him out against City. There was a stat that came up on screen about the amount of games that he starts for us against the big teams, and it's certainly more geared towards those bigger teams, and that confidence, that protection, like you say, the things that he offers, and that maturity that he offers in the middle. So I can see that. Like you say, once we've weathered the storm, like our passing was incredibly free and loose. I don't know whether or not, and as soon as I'd kind of thought or wrote it down in my notes, the stat flashed up on screen. I think it was something like 65% accuracy in our passing, and I think I'd started to realise how much we missed the likes of Ødegaard and Declan Rice, who offer that stability, offer that really good kind of passing that we're kind of so used to. Like I say, maybe it was a sense of we refamiliarizing ourselves with our starting 11 because we are missing so many crucial parts of that spine. And it takes us some time to get used to that. And we did. And once we kind of weathered that storm, I think our confidence grew a lot. I wanted to kind of, because I do think, and I agree with everything you kind of said about how we handled that first half. It's just really weird then to see the second half come out and effectively, there's two ways you can look at this. I'm going to tell you one way. Maybe you can agree with me, maybe you don't, Jace. But we effectively just let Spurs have the ball. That's the way I read it. It was kind of like we kind of either thought that they weren't going to be able to break us down, so we basically said, "Come at us and see what you can do." And we did that for long periods during the second half, not just that last 20 minutes after we scored, but really we didn't have much of the ball in that second half at all. Some of the stats got flashed up. We didn't have any shots. We didn't have although we started to improve on our possession, we were kind of letting them just have the ball. We weren't putting a lot of pressure on them. We weren't making them make the passes. We weren't maybe playing as high a line as we usually have. We weren't also pressing as deeply and as effectively as maybe I've seen us press before. Like usually we press in numbers when we sniff an opportunity, and there were opportunities where we could have, I feel. And my view of this is that we knew that they couldn't beat us, I think, is the way I reflected on this. I think we had enough confidence that we were able to defend whatever they threw at us, and so we just let them have the ball. Would you see it the same as I did?
Yes and no. I think that I don't think we didn't want to let them come at us. I don't think that was our intent, our preference. I do think that the lack of ball controlling midfielders was probably the reason why it played out the way it did, and we did heavily rely on the defense. If you look at the fact that usually we'd have Odegaard keeping the ball in that kind of central to right side of the pitch with Saka, that presence wasn't there today. Like a lot of playing the ball back and forth in that sector, we didn't have that. Then at the base, and Rice has great ball control, and I just don't think we had that. Like Thomas Partey can't do that same work. So I agree with your point to an extent where the fact that we weren't able to control the ball, but I think if we could have kept more control of the ball, we would have. I think it was more just that it wasn't. I don't know if it was necessarily designed that way. It was just how it ended up falling into place. We miss Odegaard. Odegaard is the hole for me that is the most critical hole. I think you can play without Rice. I genuinely do, because I think we've had to a few times. But Odegaard is the one. His ball control. You saw Trossard, and we were having this discussion, right? Were we playing 4-4-2, or were we playing? Was it 4-1-3-1? Would that be right? No. Either way,
we have to do 4-3-3 or 4-4-2 basically.
Yeah, but were we playing with an 8 and a 10 up the field with the base and the 6, or were we playing with 4 in midfield? That was the question you and I were discussing before we went live, right? And I genuinely thought that we were trying to replace Odegaard with Trossard, and you can see that in his ability, right, to hold the ball up, his technical feet. He does have a good pass on him. So I did think that at some points maybe he was doing the same role as Odegaard, but doing it from the left side. And I think actually that kind of throughout, in my mind, was validated because you saw a lot more of the kind of play that you'd see between Odegaard and Saka, usually on the right, between Trossard, Martinelli, Timber got involved. And they were kind of replicating the opposite on the left. So I feel like we tried, but Trossard, there was a few times he just, he got in transition, he lost the ball, and then Spurs were countering. Especially in the second half, there was a couple of times there. So I think we wanted to try and maintain the possession that we usually have, as I mentioned, the left side. But I think it just kind of fell into place because of of how the game went and the players we had, and we just knew what we had to do as soon as we got the goal.
So yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that to a point. I suppose the issue I'm kind of looking at, Spurs were not great on the ball, but, you know, and like I don't necessarily feel that we were great either. We were sloppy, particularly in our passing. And so, like I say, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just the way that the chips fell because we weren't that great, and maybe we wanted a bit more grip of the game and just couldn't seem to manage it. But I wouldn't necessarily say that they played us into a shape or a certain thing. I said to you that I think it was 4-4-2 because I saw Havertz and Trossard probably playing a lot higher than I maybe expected Trossard to do, and we just basically had Jorginho and Partey playing the same kind of role as the base of our midfield, and they weren't necessarily going forward very often. Neither of them were. And I think our wingers had a lot more defending to do than they usually would. Like, we wanted to talk about this. I'm sure we'll probably get onto it, but on both sides, I think there was much more defensive work that both of our wingers needed to do. That maybe is partly why they weren't as dynamic going forward. Like Saka, for example, was good. I don't think he was bad today by any means, not at all. But he wasn't as cutthroat, as forthright, as dynamic as he usually is. I would say there was only one opportunity I saw here where there's the usual Saka cut back and shoot that he did, and it wasn't until like the 80th minute or something.
And I'd argue, I think, did he not have a chance when he tried to cut back and shoot and got blocked and Trossard overlapped? And he should have, I think it's before Trossard got subbed. I would have cut, and he should have cut that one to Trossard, I think. But yeah, there wasn't that much opportunity there. It's definitely a game of two halves, and Spurs they didn't have anything. Like, there's no, I think this is a problem with Spurs. I don't know who their standout players are. I mean, obviously Son, fine. But like, I don't know who their standout midfielder is. I don't know. Like, everyone's like, oh, Maddison's amazing. Maddison I didn't even notice he was there today. There's no creativity. They really missed that kind of creative pull the strings player, in my opinion. And I don't know who that is for them. I just feel they're lacking something. I don't watch.
I can tell you players who I hate. Romero.
Yeah.
Really do not like Romero.
Who does?
True. Yeah, I think I can kind of agree with you. Maybe you're right. And it's their midfield for me. I know Basuma. I think Basuma was out. I don't know if he makes too big of a difference in there, but like Bentancur, you know, their midfield is pretty watchable. You can just walk through it, I would argue. Like, there's not many teams that would go through our midfield the way that other teams go through Spurs.
Yeah.
Well, I want to move on because we've talked about some of the players and maybe not got into enough detail about them. The good, the bad, and the ugly, because we did have, you know, a bit of a smorgasbord of difference in players in today's game. Some that maybe performed better than we expected, some that maybe didn't. Is there anybody? I'm going to go negative first. Why not? Jace, is there anybody that you think out of today's game that didn't really shroud themselves in any good light?
I mean, there's not massive, like, standout bad performances. I think if you were to critique some of the things, you've got to obviously talk about Martinelli again, which is becoming a bit of a well, no, it has become a theme this season. There was a couple of chances, and it filled me with optimism a bit in the first half when I saw him a couple of times. He broke through, he beat the line, he went to the byline for once to beat his man, he got the ball across, and I was like, this is what we've been asking for in Martinelli. We've been asking for that kind of beat your man, get that ball across the wing, across the box like he used to, that bit of pace that we hadn't seen from him for a while, and I was encouraged. But then when the real opportunities came through, and mainly it's the one in the first half when he was through on goal, he took the shot too early because he was too scared of Van der Ven coming across. So he didn't take that opportunity correctly, in my opinion, in regards to just going for goal. And then he didn't look across the box either to see that Saka, a straight pass cut back to Saka, would have been the more intelligent thing to do. So there's two things he did, and he didn't do either of them well. Because you were too far away from goal and the angle. I'm a greedy striker. I don't pass much. If I'm in that position, I'm getting a little bit closer to the goal. I think he was just too far out from the angle he was at. In fact, because he couldn't whip it across Vicario. He tried, but it was an easy save for him. And then, of course, Saka was wide open. So, yeah, he needs to improve again. And if I'm honest, I just have this feeling. Like everyone's getting hyped by the Sterling training videos. I just remember him when he used to play on the left for City and they had Sane as well. And I just feel like, and you had Mahrez sometimes as well. I just feel like Sterling can get a starting berth on the left. I just got this feeling.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing that stood out to me from Sterling today that I was like, but it's a very small
Cameo
part to see that, there's not a lot to judge, but I completely agree with everything you said about Martinelli. I feel very similar to what what Havertz was like at the start of last season, where he was completely devoid of confidence and really just needed a goal to settle the nerves, to get him back in the flow of things and to get him back to the way that he could be. And that's maybe we need a penalty or something that can allow Martinelli to just grab that goal and basically get him confident again. Because, I've had a friend that I've had a big debate with, whether on Martinelli or Luis Diaz over the last 3 years. And they've kind of ebbed and flowed somewhat. We've had seasons where Diaz has been great and seasons where Martinelli was great. But we're kind of getting to a place now where serious conversations about Martinelli need to be had. I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to do it here just because we're talking about it. Arteta was furious when he saw that miss. It went back to the bench, and he was very angry. And we've talked about incremental gains. We've talked about him getting rid of players when they're not necessarily where they need to be. And I just wonder if that's somewhat a position now, another position that he feels he can make improvements in. And I think he knew that anyway. That's why Nico Williams is on the list. But I just wonder whether or not we thought that Saka backups and strikers for such a long time. Is that now going to go back to the back of the shopping list? Because we need something else much more like those game changers, those real, can come on and have that X factor. That was a quote that he had. We lack X factor. And I just wonder whether or not Martinelli is now just another one of those players that is now, destined for the transfer list.
Squad player. I don't think, he can come play on the right. I think he played on the right against City last year in the home game, right? So if we need to play him on the right, we can. We play Gabi Jesus on the right as well. But so I think they fall into the Saka. I wouldn't be surprised for us to buy a starting berth left winger and see these guys be just backups off the bench, impact players. That would be my kind of opinion on what happens. I don't think we sell Gabi, at least just yet. He's also on big wages, isn't he? Because he got that contract extension was at the beginning of last year. So, I mean, when he got the big wage bill, we expected him just to grow, but he's not grown. We need to see improvement, but I'd bench him in the moment. I'd start.
But this is the problem, because we've had this conversation. I've had it with many people. Trossard is a great impact player, as we've discussed on this pod many, many times. He's not been great as a starter, and so you're kind of getting the worst of both worlds with our left wing at the moment. There was one thing I do want to mention though. So I on the good side of the coin, I think, like I said earlier, Timber. I like Timber. He made some really good runs today that could have really resulted in something much more than it did. I would say that he offers something different than all of our other left backs. And I would say that there was flashes during this game of a partnership beginning between Martinelli and Timber.
I agree with that.
Maybe there could be stock in allowing them a few more games, because bearing in mind that the two of them have never really played together at all, I don't think. Maybe the last game was the first game that we'd seen it.
Yeah, no, that was the first time. It was.
Yeah, so I do think that the potential that there could be something building. We've talked a lot in the past of our left-hand side not being as connected as our right with Ben White and Saka, and that has come a lot from playing together, often understanding how each other, what roles they both play, how they cover each other, the kind of when the overlap comes and when it doesn't. And maybe there just is an opportunity here. This is the problem with City on the horizon. Post that match, we've got a bit of an easier run. But could we look at that as an opportunity to build up that relationship and give it some time to flourish, maybe?
Let me ask you a critical question. Does Gabby Martinelli play in a starting XI that wins the league?
What, of any team or just ours? Of any team, I'm guessing.
Any team.
The player that we're seeing now, I'd argue no. He's just not. You know, you need your wingers to be 20 goal and assists across the season. You need him to be getting into at least double digits in efforts, and at the moment we're not seeing that from Martinelli. And so I'd say no.
It's cutthroat time. Bench. If our wingers are fit, I'd start with Sterling next against City and Saka. The only other thing I'd say is that I think I agree with your point on the partnership, but Martinelli still needs to improve his end product. And I'll probably just finish on saying that for Atlanta, I think they'll maintain that, partly because I think Sterling might have to start on the right against Atlanta. I think away first Champions League game, I think Sterling's going to
got a lot of experience as well.
Yeah, he's got a lot of experience. He's a good tool, if you will, in regards to of our Arsenal, no pun intended, to bring in, and he'll know what to do there. Saka needs a rest.
Come on, Chase. It's never going to happen. Arteta just loves playing Saka.
He needs a rest.
I know. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I just can't see it myself. I wanted to just talk to you because we've not mentioned this yet. We talked about Timber. Timber got a yellow card for a challenge on Pedro Porro. What's your view on that challenge?
Not yellow. Who won the ball? Did his foot? So you could say, oh, his foot was going high, like studs down, but did he not put his studs onto the ball? Did he make a challenge on the opposing player? Was he late? No, it's not even a yellow. And they were talking on Sky, making it big. Oh, well, that saved him from a red card. There was nowhere near a red card. Oh, VAR must check that. No, just do one. It wasn't even.
I'm so aligned with you that I'm watching it and I was like, it's not. I don't think it was even a foul. And I get that they've compared it to a pass foul. I think it was Curtis Jones, where the foot's gone on top of the ball and it slid off the ball and it's gone into the other player's foot. Now, you could also argue that there again, it's not malicious. It's not a malicious challenge. There's no force in that. There's no kind of ill intent in that. It's just accidental. Granted, those are still yellow cards. He got the ball, like you say, and he carried on playing. I got a text, I think, and I'd read online someone saying that's two yellows in the same, because when Vicario ran over to him and basically then Timber grabbed his shirt, it was basically like face to face. It's one of those. Remember years ago, Martinelli got two yellow cards in the same passage of play.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, Jesus, like if that was to happen here, like we'd already made such a big deal out of the kicking the ball away, and everyone's eyes are all over the whole delaying the start. All that nonsense since the Declan Rice red card. I can't even imagine the discourse that would have resulted in such a moment during this game, because it was that was the bit. There was a bit of a cauldron. I'm with you. I don't think it's a foul. I don't think it's a card. I think they are somewhat glamorizing it or making it more than it is to have a talking point, because up until that point there wasn't. There wasn't a lot to talk about, and I just feel there's probably putting far more into that than needs must, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, Gary Neville was like, I'd say, unnecessarily going in on Saliba as well. I don't know if you observed that at points. Even with when Saliba got the ball and got given the yellow for interrupting the start. I'm like, was it really though interrupting the start? It wasn't like Spurs had the ball planted and ready to take the free kick either. And they're going to go, well, it's enforcing the letter of the law. And it's like, how many Arsenal fans have found examples since the Declan Rice card of that rule not being applied, and then suddenly it just gets like, oh no, we're going to do it to Arsenal twice, but everyone else can do. It's just that consistency.
Yeah, I actually do. I do want to give a bit of credit, I think, to the refereeing, because I do think the first half was relatively inconsistent, a little bit all over the place. The commentator was making a big deal about giving yellow cards for non-cardable offences. I reckon they went back in at halftime and basically had a conversation with themselves and said, we could ruin this game here with all the. I think there was 8 yellow cards in the first half, so there was an opportunity here where it could have resulted in a red. And I think, personally speaking, I thought a red was coming. I don't know who for, but I could sense it's the type of game, the type of atmosphere, the type of teams and players. You know, there's players in there. There's a Ben White, there's a Havertz, there's a Porro, there's a Romero. There are plenty of players in there ready for a red card. And I'm glad that I think level-headed's prevailed in the second half. I give him a bit of credit there.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think it's fair feedback. He could have absolutely ruined the game. I think Spurs ultimately. I think it was it. I remember Timber and Saliba getting yellows in the first half. There was 8 yellows, so it was 6 yellows for Spurs in the first half. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. They had a lot.
I don't remember anyone else from Arsenal getting a yellow, but
Jorginho got one in the second half, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, he did okay overall. It wasn't as big a concern as I think Arsenal fans made out from what I was seeing on social media before going into the game.
Yeah,
overall managed it well. There was no controversy. The Vicario thing, though, I mean, Vicario got the yellow, and I think that was deserved, right? He was the one because
he instigated the moment.
Yeah,
because
Timber played on, right? He thought he'd won the ball, which we all think he did. I don't think it was a foul, so he played on. And then Vicario was just like, why are you basically? They were like, all the Spurs players went over to Timber and basically went, why are you playing on, basically? And it's like, because I won the ball.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
It's the whistle, Jace, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
We talk about another beacon of hope in our player. And it feels like we've talked about themes. Another player that seems very familiar to us is David Raya. Again, here putting in a performance that effectively saves us points.
Yep.
After watching Aaron Ramsdale for Southampton yesterday, nobody would be questioning the decision. I think he is proving his worth every single game at the moment. Do you see the same performance? Are you kind of comfortable and happy that he's now our number one keeper? And what did he do during this game, Jace, that really stood out to you?
Yeah, tactical now at the end of the game. We're keeping the ball, running the clock down when we needed it to, which is perfect in the situation and the way that we are defensively running out games. I think within the first 10 minutes, he made a save. There was a ball across the box from Kulusevski, I think. I don't know if Solanke got on it. I don't think he did. It was just kind of one of those ones where it kind of drags towards the far
loopy one.
Yeah, and he just, he didn't look like he was going to make a save, and then suddenly that's it. He's palmed that away, and I just wrote in my head 2 points there. Like adding up my points so far for him this season, I think he's at like maybe 7 or 8 now. I think at least. So yeah, solid performance. He's just being consistent, which is obviously the main thing you want. I think finding consistency. The only thing I would say, if I was to really kind of critique, was some of his passing today. I'm not sure. I noticed a bit of a change in certain games. So obviously the fashion at the moment is for the defenders at goal kicks to come into the box and to pass it in the box for the goal kick. And we weren't really doing much of that. And I think that was maybe because of maybe our midfield. Like, yeah, sure, we can pass it out, but then we don't really have that same midfielders to kind of collect the ball and translate up to the pitch. So he was going long a bit, and I've noticed we went long a few times. Not until late in the second half did I notice him kind of controlling and passing it out. I think while the game was up for grabs, he sprayed a few long balls that I just thought were just giving the ball away, to be honest. But I mean, still he's saving us points. Another clean sheet, Golden Gloves still going back to the Emirates again. So
I agree with everything you've kind of said about. I think that was a tactical setup from us. I think usually we play that pass through the middle that goes into Rice's feet or Erdegaard's feet, And the times when we did try it, which was mainly to Partey's feet or Jorginho's feet, Jorginho can spray the pass to the wings, and he had done on a few occasions quite well. Partey did not. And I suspect there's part of that going, do we really want to invite that pressure when we can just like play further up the pitch and try and win the ball there? I think, like you say, I think that was a decision we'd made, knowing the players and the outfit that we had in our midfield.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think we know that this is the kind of football we're going to be playing for the next week. It's not the football we want to play long term, but let's be honest, we're going to be playing exactly the same kind of game against City. We're not going to play our football at City. We're going to try and score from a corner, go with a 1-0 win. You know, that's how we're going to play. So it's just practice. So, yeah, did what we needed to there. When are we going to talk about Gabriel?
Well, I don't know. Is there any other superlatives that you can give this player than there's not already been given, Jace? Like, what do you like? I know this is the thing. Saliba gets all the flowers and has done for such a long period of time. But again and again and again and again, and I think we said this in our players of the last season, because I think Gabriel was either my 2 or he was up there for sure. But he is continuing to do the things that we need our defenders to do at both ends of the pitch. Who needs a striker?
Masterclass performance. This is the one performance, I think. Just the consistency at the back. There was a couple of chances with Spurs in the last 20, and he was there blocking, tackling, winning those balls, getting them out of the box as needed, just doing that dirty, tough, gritty defensive performance that you expect from him now. He's become accustomed to. But at the same time, just the consistency of goals, right? You got to laugh when you say it, right? Like, we expect goals from our centre-backs. No team expects goals from their centre-backs consistently, but we do. I love the little... I don't know if you noticed it. So when the ball came over the top, it was him and Romero. He managed to go behind Romero. It was just a casual little, like, push.
Little nudge.
Away.
Yeah, little nudge.
Little
not enough
push.
in it that would say, like, yeah.
Yeah. Not enough for it to be a foul, but just to give himself some space so then he could leap. And then the header, he absolutely smashed that. It was like a bullet because it went straight through Vicario. I loved it. Brilliant goal. Nicholas Jova, tip the hat to you. Set piece masterclass. Yeah. Not much more to say. Just
I had to look out while you were talking, Jess, because it just made me laugh. So obviously, we had 2 Gabriels in this game, and they kind of maybe of different sides of the coin. So Martinelli has got 32 goals in 132 games. Gabriel has got 15 in 136. So he's got half as many goals in this many games, and he's a centre back.
There you go. But
like you say, you don't expect it, and nor should you, because that's not the role that he is employed to fill. But credit where credit's due to Jova, like you say, it's all of our business last season being the best in the league at set pieces and even though they've changed the rules a little bit about what kind of things you can do around the keeper, although there was a bit of that today, we're still doing the business where we need to.
Well, I think we've been pretty consistent all the way there. I don't think the things around the keeper change it, because that's the only thing that stops is the Ben White shithousery, which we'll
no loosening of the gloves, today, unfortunately, which would have been fun.
We're all here for it, but apart from that, I don't think it changes much. We just keep trying different things, right? I think we're being continuously inventive there, so each game is different in regards to how we're attacking those set pieces. It makes it very, very, very difficult for a team to stop us. I think the only team that's outdone us and stopped us with set pieces is Porto. Do you remember Champions League game away? Like they did a great job. Everyone should watch how they did it, because they're the only team that's in the last season.
Don't give them any more advice, Jay. It's want to give them the secret sauce. Because I was actually thinking today, a lot of our corner routines have been Declan Rice's balls and matron. Declan Rice delivery into the box has always been on point. He knows where to put it, because we did one. Gary Neville was losing his shit when it did it. We did a short one, and he was like, "Why would you do a short corner when you just saw how awful Vicario is in the air? Like, put it on him, because he can't catch it."
Vicario was flapping. He was flapping everywhere. He reminded me of Almunia a little bit.
Yeah, we've had too much scar tissue and history in our flappy keepers that it just it doesn't. It's so nice. Although we did have one moment here where Solanke, I don't think did a lot, to be honest. We kind of got away with one, to be honest. It could have gone anywhere really. Raya luckily kind of scooped it up and managed to recover quite well afterwards, but it was close for sure.
Didn't you want to talk about the King of Ibiza?
Who, Ben White?
Yeah.
What order does it go in, Jace? Arsenal, Ibiza, England. Is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually started writing a note towards the start of the game that I thought he was doing all right, and then as this game grew, and I have to give some credit to Bukayo Saka here, I think White was struggling against Son to the point where he needed help, and Saka was there to help double up on Son. And I think there was actually the last game as well that we played against Spurs that he got done down the wing from Son. And Son's a great player. This is kind of like, when Salah did Zinchenko last year or the year before, and everyone was like, oh my God, Zinchenko's awful. It's like, Salah is probably the best winger in the world. So, if he's beating a defender, that's what he does. He'll beat most defenders. So let's not going too hard on Zinchenko. But Ben White has the tools in his locker to be able to do enough with Son and probably didn't. And I feel that, he was a bit on toast for me. And I think he recovered well. There wasn't anything awful in this game, but it's one of those games where you kind of that's an element to his game that I feel is you kind of forget sometimes because he's doing all the good stuff and he's doing all the loosening of the gloves and a bit of the shithousery. When those games don't come across and maybe we're losing or it's 0-0, that's when you kind of I just need you to do a bit better. And we kind of not got away with one. I would just say he was probably one of our weakest players.
Would you consider putting Timber at right back and Calafiori at left back at any point this season?
Maybe, but the only caveat to that I have is I don't think Arteta likes disrupting this back four too much. I feel right now that the people and the personnel that he's got is relatively settled. I think that four is the four that will start most games if everybody's fit. There will be times when he'll be able to roll out a Zinchenko or a Timber in right back and a Calafiori at left back when we're playing maybe opposition that isn't quite as good as us, lower end of the league table kind of clubs. I can't see that. I don't know if do you think differently then?
I mean, I see it happening if there's an injury. I'm not sure.
Is Tomiyasu back yet?
No, he's not back. Kivior was on the bench today because even Zinchenko wasn't in the squad.
That bench, maybe because that bench was a worry.
Drags.
That bench is a worry.
Well, I mean, I looked at part of the bench and I was like, that's a strong bench. When you think attacking wise, for once I looked at the attacking depth, we've got Martinelli, Saka, Trossard and Havertz all playing. And then you've got Sterling and Jesus come off the bench. I'm like, I quite like that. Sterling and Jesus come off the bench sounds quite tasty to me. Midfield, there weren't any. I mean, January came on and didn't do anything wrong.
Just ran around a lot.
Yeah, just intimidating atmosphere. Just didn't do anything wrong, and just minutes experience. Good. Hopefully he starts in the League Cup, and hopefully he gets some minutes, and maybe even in the Champions League and some of the easier teams. Because I think, I want him to be better than Vieira and Smith Rowe, 100%. So I hope he gets that opportunity. But they're. I mean, that we are defensively in the drags when we've got Kivior on the bench. Now, it's no disrespect to Kivior because he did do well for us at times last season. But when you look at the depth that we have in defence with Calafiori, with Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, the fact that you have put Kivior on the bench, even is it Miles Skelly? I'm going to say that wrong.
And there was Heaven as well was on the bench.
Yeah, so Miles Skelly, looked amazing in preseason, and I really hope that he might be a long-term option for us. Like, City have bought in, is it Rico Lewis occasionally plays right back? I think that kind of equivalent. I've got strong hopes for him. But yeah,
I worry a little bit though. We know how not bad. Yeah, I'm going to say it, how bad Arteta is at integrating youth into this team. We've seen it, and we had 3. I think they're all 17 or 18. They're all very young. And how he's integrating them into games and allowing them to play games it has for me always been a worry of Arteta's management. He much prefers maturity, professionalism, experience, as most managers would. And this is not a game to be rolling out January in 10. I completely agree with that. There's going to be games where that's possible, and those games is like the games that me and you have talked about in the past. We're like, do not start Saka, do not start him. He does not need to be anywhere near this game. And yet then he starts right wing. You're like, what are you doing? So we have some options. I just want to see. The problem is with the left back, for example, we've got about 4 other players ahead of Skelly.
Yeah, I mean, Mikel has to put youth in the side now. I think that's why you are seeing January and you are seeing Skelly in the squad, is because he has to. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, he signed a 3-year deal. So he is 8. It's going to be, if he finishes that deal, 8, will that be 8 years in the club? Which is great and awesome. Stability, love it. Wouldn't have anyone else managing us. He is my manager. And I've always said he is. I love Arteta. But he has no option but to put youth in. You have to at some point bring youth players through over 8 years to show a trajectory and level of confidence for your ranks of youth players. Arsenal do not want to be losing good youth players to United and to City and to Chelsea, which we have been. There's a couple that have got away from us where they've been under us and we've not won out. And that's because whatever plan has been presented by Per and Mikel to them has not given them a clear enough trajectory through to the first team. So it has to work at some point. He has no option. So yes, you could say track record to date, who's broken through. Saka had already broken into the first team before Mikel came, but he wasn't necessarily a start. He played at left back right at times, so he wasn't starting winger, so he did come through. Emil Smith-Rowe had the confidence from Mikel until the point he got his injury and took his surgery, and then he never made it back after that. But he was, the Amazon doc, Emil Smith-Rowe was a big part of that season. So Martinelli, you could argue, he was there before Mikel. He broke through a little bit under Emery, but there was a long time before Martinelli actually started getting playing. Do you remember that we used to have Pierre on the left a lot and Laka through the middle with Mikel, and they wouldn't play Martinelli? And we were like, why? He doesn't like Martinelli. He was just, and then we kind of had the discussion of whether they're just doing the Phil Foden with him, where they're just giving him time. And eventually he came through, and then you saw this rapid ping, and then suddenly now we've just seen a flat line. So I think it's there. If they're good enough, they will play. But I also think he's nurturing and being careful with certain players' developments.
Well, I suppose I'm more like it's the academy as well, not just youth. That I if you were an academy player and you were looking at who's come through the ranks and played a lot under Arteta, I think you'd be somewhat skeptical of your chances. And so you're right. Maybe his hand has been somewhat forced right now. That's not what you want as a youth academy player. You want to know what your route is into that first team and where you're going to be playing. At the moment, it feels like his minutes and majority are going to come through the Carabao Cup, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Right. Anything that I've missed or you've missed on this game, Jace?
I don't think so. I'll shout out to Havertz because we haven't actually mentioned him once, I don't think. All I want to say is tip my hat for consistency. I love this good pressing. 1 balls up the field. He didn't get a goal today, but
could have. He had a couple of good headers as well.
Yeah, he did actually. I just love his consistency. Very, very underrated. Love him though.
Yeah, you want to keep that on the radar. I was going to just end if there's anything on the rival watch. I think for me, most weekends when you have a 12 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, your weekends can be made or broken on that type of game. And having Man United finally win a game was a bit frustrating, knowing that we were going to come after. Both anybody that listens to this pod knows that we don't necessarily have a much love for Manchester United. Watching them win, but then seeing Liverpool lose, it kind of makes it all right.
I mean, Liverpool losing is great, but you called this section rival watch and then started talking about Man United.
True.
They're not a rival.
Maybe I
mean, they're a mid-table. They're a mid-table Premier League team.
Other club watch. But I was also I was keeping an eye on my phone. Brentford went 1-0 up within the first minute. A real calamity at the back for Man City. We just pounced on this and it's one of those. I think Brentford were the last team to beat City. Pretty sure,
possibly.
And so it's kind of like, could it happen again? And then obviously Haaland does Haaland things, and it's very, very frustrating, which puts more emphasis on this next game, because we are coming up against City that feel like they've just started as they ended. Even when they don't have all the players that they need, they've got Nathan Ake who's on the shelf with an injury. They've been without Rodri because they've been easing him back in. They've just signed back Gundogan, who's obviously going to be good for them. We're playing them on Sunday, Jace. But how do you? Because the way we talked through this podcast has kind of made me think. And we got a lot of heat last season for setting up this game. A lot of people thought we set up that game against City that we wanted to draw. I don't believe that. I don't think that to be true, but I can see how other people come to that conclusion, particularly in the way that we set up and the way that we play. Is that what do you think? Do you think we're gonna play that way and aim for a point, or do you think we're gonna go hell for leather to get the 3?
I think we'll play exactly the same as we played today. The intent isn't to get a point. The intent is to get a 1 or 2-0 win and get out of that ground with a good defensive performance. That's the goal. We're not setting. We don't think we play any game to draw, but people may be underwhelmed by our performance they're going to see at City. People may moan, pundits may critique us, and that's because ultimately they're bored and they've got nothing to talk about while they're watching the match. Prepare for a Gary Neville onslaught, but who cares? I mean, we know how to win playing our proper Arteta ball, and we know how to win when we just need to grind out a defensive performance. And at City, it's about grinding out a defensive performance. You can't outplay City at their own game when they've got Erling Haaland playing the way he is. All you have to do is frustrate Erling Haaland, and then hopefully we can get quite a few corners. It's not going to be any surprises.
I like that. That's good. If you can get Saliba or Gabriel frustrating Haaland and you can nick a goal from a corner, I'd be immensely pleased with
just
that.
Little pinches, little yank on his ponytail.
Yeah.
So, things like that. Little niggles.
Yeah. All right. Well, so you think we're going to come over the 3 points, Jace?
It's going to be very, very difficult. Backs to the wall kind of job, but I'd like to see a 1-0 or a 2-0. I'd like a clean sheet, but if we have to 2-1, but that's the hope. We'll play hopeful. Deck will be back, so the midfield will be a little bit more solid. I think consistent. I think Tom.
Do you think Odegaard's out for a while?
Well, he wasn't even on the bench, so I'm not expecting to see Odegaard. I think that's all being kept up hush hush because
we want City to think that he might play.
Yeah, I think so, but I think the intent is that you won't hear anything. He was crying when he left the pitch, so it's not a good sign.
Doesn't bode well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was go on.
Atlanta. Before we rip it up.
Oh yeah, we've got Atlanta on Tuesday, haven't we?
Champions League, mate. Away, hard game. They beat Bayern.
Yeah, it is going to be a hard game, I think.
Look, man.
We could have done with a look, man. Yeah, it's Italy. Italy's always going to be a hard place to go to an away game. Their atmospheres and their crowds are always heated. The problem is, again, like we talked about our bench today not being great. We don't really have a lot of rotational options in our front six that can give some rest in the legs of players, particularly in our midfield. So I don't suspect many changes compared to what we saw today. Although Gabi Jesus has been commonly quite good in the Champions League.
I think he loves it. I think Sterling starts to rest Saka, Martinelli play into form, and Jesus down the middle.
Okay.
Maybe
do you
he might
think we'll set up for a draw again there, though, or not?
No. And I think you might see Havertz still play and drop in to that Odegaard position in his absence, and then Declan, possibly Partey, because I think we'll save Jorginho. We can't play 3 games in a week, so Jorginho will be saved for City.
Okay.
My expectation. You saying?
No, I think you're right. Havertz and then Jesus up top. I can see that. I can maybe say a few different changes, like left and right back, maybe. Let's see. But
we haven't got any in the moment.
No, I know, but then I suspect, like, maybe you were right earlier when you said maybe Timber goes right and Calafiori goes left or something like that. But I would also argue that we probably want more. Like I say, this back four again feels like another change in our back four. Like Timber going in left back is new to that system, although we've obviously always wanted him to play in this system. Injury has stopped that, and so I do think there's some consistency and familiarization in playing that same four in another game before a really big game on Sunday. So some of it I think will be consistent, and then there might be maybe 1 or 2, like you say, in those front that rotate out a little bit because we need to keep Saka's legs fresh. We need to keep Trossard together. We need to maybe put Jesus and Havertz, give him a bit more of a rest. So let's see. I'm hopeful though, and considering I'd kind of forgot the Champions League was coming around so quickly. This is a really tough period for us, and it's great to start that tough period with missing players with a victory.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm expecting 3 points in Italy, put it that way.
All right, nice. Well, thank you for those that have watched and joined us for this live stream of Arsenal versus Tottenham. 1-0 victory for the Gunners. North London is and forever will be red. If you're going to join us again, please do make sure you subscribe to the channel, get notifications whenever we go live with our next stream or our next video. And please also do give this one a like and a comment about how you thought Arsenal fared against Spurs. If you are listening to the audio version of this, Jason, what do we want those guys to do?
Yeah, if you listen to the audio, make sure you subscribe to the feed on your podcast provider of choice. You're going to get one late. Well, you're going to get the latest podcast as soon as it's available. Please leave a review. We love to read your reviews, and a star rating, please. 5 stars, no less, if possible. Thank you, guys.
Lovely, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Come on, you!